Our reporter Mark Hurst has this.
A US Senate inquiry looking into alleged links between Donald Trump's presidential campaign team and Russia may be fatally compromised after the House Intelligence Committee chairman, Devin Nunes, appeared to have briefed the White House that Trump's team may have, quotes, incidentally, end quotes, been wiretapped by US intelligence agencies. Nunes had apparently contacted the Trump team after learning in evidence obtained by the committee that there were dozens of documents showing the Trump team were inadvertently surveilled by the US intelligence community. The move by Nunes has, however, led to howls of protest from Democrats who have accused the Intelligence Committee chairman of undermining the committee's investigation. US President Donald Trump has faced weeks of pressure from political opponents after he tweeted he had been wiretapped by former US President Barack Obama, a claim Obama strongly rejected. Following the tweet, Trump was pressed to produce evidence to support his claims, but ignored the calls. But the disclosures by Nunes appears to give credence to the President's initial claims. Well, to discuss this further, I'm now joined by Robert David Steele, a former US spy who was recently recommended for the Nobel Peace Prize. Mr. Steele, do these disclosures by House Intelligence Chairman Devin Nunes not vindicate, at least in part, the concerns US President Trump expressed over wiretapping?
They completely vindicate President Trump, but I would go even further. Nunes and the people in Congress have been very reluctant because some of them are being blackmailed by the CIA as well as the NSA. The fact of the matter is that GCHQ has for decades spied on American and Canadian politicians and then provided the take to their counterparts. That was a way of getting around the prohibition of spying on your own politicians. After 9/11, NSA simply went straight to it. Every U.S. politician and judge is being spied on by NSA with impunity, and many of them are being blackmailed. Trump is 100% on the money.
And intelligence agencies like the CIA and NSA must incidentally record many high-profile people all the time. What oversight exists within these agencies to determine when it becomes inappropriate to continue surveillance if it may subsequently be deemed to be interfering with the democratic process?
First off, there is no democratic process in the United States of America. We live in a two-party tyranny that is a neo-fascist state. The banks control everything. Second, there is no oversight. I am, as a former spy, intimately familiar with Executive Order 12333. The fact of the matter is that NSA and CIA believe that they are above the law. They don't care about oversight, and the people who are responsible for oversight are being blackmailed into not caring either.
And one of the other interesting aspects that's come out of this is the question over who within the CIA or NSA leaked this surveillance material linking members, specifically named members of Trump's team. How likely are we to find that out? I mean, who leaked this information, and what are the consequences they face?
Well, I have already published my view that James Clapper and John Brennan and Mike Rogers are impeachable. Now, they're not in office anymore. They're certainly indictable for crimes against the state. The lack of integrity at the very highest levels of the U.S. intelligence community is something that has troubled me for 30 years. And it's one of the reasons I've published on the need to reform national intelligence. The U.S. intelligence community has become like the Stasi, the secret police. This is unacceptable. It's the front end of the deep state, and the deep state does exist, and Donald Trump is the one man today who could take down the deep state.
And the decision by the chairman to go public with this information has caused a major political row in Washington, with the Democrats accusing the Republicans of undermining the work of the committee. But isn't the whole problem with trying to get to the truth of these issues that the whole issue becomes a political football between the Republicans and Democrats, and the wider public never get any closer to the actual truth?
Well, let me point out that the Republicans were forced to come out with this. There was actually a letter by a former prosecutor who was working with an NSA contractor whistleblower named Montgomery. And that's the letter that broke open the story. The public needs to understand that there is no difference between the Republican and Democratic parties. They both hate Donald Trump. They both hate the American people. They are both part of the deep state. They are not interested in the truth. They are interested in retaining power so they can continue to loot the public treasury. What is happening here is that Donald Trump, who has many good instincts, but has also made many mistakes, for example, giving more money to the military, is insane. Donald Trump is the first person since John F. Kennedy was assassinated to actually have the power to take down the deep state.
And with WikiLeaks publishing more information from the CIA, the outside perception appears that it's impossible to keep a secret in Washington. How frustrating will that be for those who head up the CIA and the NSA?
Well, first off, the people who head up the CIA and NSA do not have the public interest in mind, and I could care less what they think. What you need to understand is that there are many, many good people in Washington and many, many good people in the CIA and the NSA who are absolutely outraged at the utterly despicable crimes against humanity that are being committed by the CIA and the NSA. It's possible to keep a secret in Washington, but as I testified to the Moynihan Commission, the primary purpose of secrecy in Washington is to enable the deep state to lie to the public, to Congress, and to the media. There are no secrets from the Russians or the Chinese or the Iranians or the Israelis. Secrecy is a tool of the deep state.
And a lot of the focus on alleged hacking recently and surveillance has been on Russia. But in the US, we've seen a lot more evidence of that compared to the allegations levelled against Russia. Is it possible the focus on Russia has been a deliberate deflection tactic to move attention away from the endemic snooping the US is carrying out on a global scale?
I wrote the first letter to the White House in 1994, on the need to pay attention to cybersecurity. NSA was given the mission. Instead of actually trying to secure U.S. communications and computing, NSA worked with manufacturers in the U.S. to make every U.S. communications and computing system vulnerable to infantile backdoors. It was NSA's infantile backdoors that spawned the Chinese and Russian hacking industries. More recently, I ripped John Brennan's head off and spit down his throat with respect to Russians hacking the election. They did not hack the election. I have led with publishing and 2 appearances on Russia Today and elsewhere, telling the truth, which is this was a combination of insiders across many different boundaries who were utterly outraged at the fact that Hillary Clinton, who is a known criminal traitor, was about to be elected by the deep state. We really need to focus on the fact that there's an opportunity here between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump to finally take down the deep state, which is everywhere.
And with that may come incredible risks going beyond the surveillance. What's the potential for a political coup taking place in Washington?
It's a very important question that you've just asked. I believe that if Donald Trump does not get his head out of his butt, there will be a political coup and he will be gone within 6 months. If, however, he acts on my memorandum to the president and my longer 10-page memorandum, A Spy's Christmas Message for the President, then he has the possibility of declaring an electoral reform act that would bury the two-party tyranny and give him a massive public base, far broader than the Republican Party has now. So where we're at right now is that the deep state is literally is over the cliff and hanging on by its fingernails, and Donald Trump is not thinking clearly about how to put his boot on those fingernails.
Robert David Steele, a fascinating insight there. Thanks for joining us on World in Focus.